Yeah, we were there. Okay. Yeah, morning everyone. My name's Tiff. I'm part of the leadership team here as well. This morning is something really, really exciting for us here and hopefully exciting for you as well. What we're going to be doing this morning is Carol and Andrew are going to get to come to the front of church. They'll get a chance to explain to everybody about where they are in their journey of faith and how they've come to be there, and why baptism now is something that they think is important for them to do. You may be used to baptisms, or you may have never seen a baptism before. So what I want to just quickly do is to explain what's going to happen. They're going to come, and they're going to come into the water that's at the front here with me, and I'm going to dunk them under the water. And it's a picture of something that's already happened inside them. So they're going to do an outward show of something that's already happened within. It's an outward show of how their life before they knew Jesus has been washed clean. The things that they've done that were not right. The things that they haven't done that they should have done. All kinds of things that have gone in their life. Things that others have done to them that shouldn't have happened. All those things can be washed away, and they come out starting a new life. Going into the water now isn't going to do that for them. Going into this water doesn't make that change. It's just an outward sign of what's already happened on the inside. They're washed clean of those things from the past, and they start a new life. It's symbolic of all kinds of other things. It's symbolic. We sang in that song, didn't we, about Jesus and how he died on the cross, but then on the third day, how he was raised back to life again. And so there's a symbol almost of like being buried and being raised again to that new life in him that it's possible to have. That's not going to happen now here. That's already happened in their lives on the inside. So what we're doing is an outward sign to everybody who's here about something that's happened already within Carol's life and within Andrew's life. But they want to share that with everyone else. They want it to be something that everyone else can celebrate with them. Their families, their friends, us here as a church. Something that we can celebrate, we can be excited about. Something that is really thrilling for them. It's their way of standing up and saying, hey everybody, Jesus is in my life and he's changed it completely. And I want to tell you about it. So that's what we're doing this morning. It's something Jesus said we should do. He said you should get baptized when you come to know him, when you come into a relationship with him. And so that's what they're doing this morning. They're going to tell us about how that relationship has been formed. They're going to tell us about the difference that it makes. And they're showing us by this public declaration something that's already happened on the inside, that Jesus has changed their lives forever. And we get to join in with that. We get to celebrate that. We get to be a part of that. We get to be there with them, cheering them on, which hopefully you will do a little bit later as well. But that's something that we as a church commit to doing ongoingly. We'll continue to do that support and that care and that cheering on because they're part of our family. So that's what we're doing this morning. We're going to have that public show of something that's already happened inside these people's lives. Before we do that, though, we're going to listen to a song. I've got the names written down. I've got to remember who it is who's doing it. Jackie, Andrew, and Jane are going to be singing Amazing Grace for us. This is a song that Carol chose and particularly asked if they could sing for us. I'm going to ask if you can restrain yourselves until we get to the last chorus. And when we get to the last chorus, there'll be some kind of signal or there'll be something will happen. Oh, okay, they're repeating the first verse, okay. And we can all join in again. But if we listen to it first and contain ourselves, and then we'll all join in together once we get to repeat that at the end. So, thank you for coming along and doing this for us. We're going to listen to Amazing Grace. Those of you who are regulars at Wellsprings will know, firstly that I talk for a long time. I'm not going to do that this morning. But also that we've been going through a series at the moment where we're looking at Basically, we're going through the Old Testament, and we're seeing the story of the Old Testament, the story of God's people, by looking at particular individuals and seeing how they fit into this big story, and then seeing something of how they show Jesus to us at the same time. So this morning, we've reached in our sermon series a character called Ezekiel. If you know any of the stories of Ezekiel, there's loads of different things going on, but I want to tell you about one particular thing to do with Ezekiel. You need to understand the context a little bit. Israel, the nation of Israel, was this one great country who did some amazing things in the area around. And then through their own choice, through their own arguments, through all the things that went wrong for them, the nation of Israel got split into two. And eventually the northern kingdom of Israel was invaded by the Assyrians, and they were all destroyed and taken away and all sorts of things. And then the southern kingdom of Judah was also destroyed by a group of people called the Babylonians. They came and they took over. They ransacked the whole country. They destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. And loads of the people, the vast majority of the people who were living there, were taken away into exile in Babylon. If you can imagine what it must have been like for them and how they must have felt at that point, where everything that they had based their life on was suddenly taken away. Everything that they wanted to have and be part of was taken away. All the trust that they had in one another, in their leaders, in God, was taken away. Because God can't be God when we lose and get beaten and get taken off into exile. And they had this strange idea, strange to us, completely normal to them, that if you want to worship God, where do you worship him? You worship him in the temple in your country. And now you've been taken away into a completely different country, and you're slaves there. How can you worship God? Excuse me. How can you worship God when you've lost, when everything's fallen apart, and you're not even in that place anymore where you were, where you met with God? The only thing I'm going to tell you about Ezekiel, I'm going to tell you in a second, and that's something that blew his mind. And it blew the minds of all those people with him who were away in exile in Babylon. But I want to tell you a story first. A few years ago, Susie and I, my wife, we got to go to India and spend some time there. The Church of South India asked us to go and speak at a bishop's conference, and there was different things happening. But we got to go and visit with some of the people from the church, some of the community projects, some of the orphanages, all kinds of different things that the church were running in that place. And some of them were incredible. But occasionally they'd say to us, would you like to come with one of us? Because we're going to go out into one of the villages. And most of these villages are not places where they knew anything about Jesus, they knew anything about Christianity. The only thing maybe they did know was that the people in the church were good because they looked after orphans and they built hospitals and those sorts of things. And so we got to go one particular day to this village, and they said, what we're going to do is set up a microphone, and there'll be a few people sat there, and then you can do a little, I used to do some juggling and all sorts of things. Do some of that, and then if there's anybody who wants to be prayed with, we can invite them to come back into this little building that they've got there. Probably about 20 people would fit in it. We arrived late, because that's what happens in India when you're trying to travel around. And we got to the front, and when I stood up and looked out, rather than like 15 or 20 people that we thought might be there, I couldn't see the end of the people. It was like being at Glastonbury or something like that. There's thousands of people there had come to see me juggle and to listen to me speak. And it's like, God can't be at work in this place because look at the condition, look at the people. You're going somewhere new where God's never been, and you're going to take God there for the first time. And so I did my little bit of juggling. I did a 5-minute little talk after the juggling, explaining all about the juggling and what it meant and the symbolism of different things. And then said, if there's anyone who'd like to be prayed for, because we think that God can come and he can make a difference in people's lives today. If anyone would like to be prayed for, then we're going to be in this little building. Come in and we can pray for you. And there was one man there who was translating all of this, because it was obviously they were in their local dialect they would have been speaking. None of them understood English. And so I did my little bit. We said, right, we're going to go in there now and we're going to go and pray, and anybody who wants to come. We walked into the building and turned round, and it was almost like a cartoon, you know, where you get sort of pushed back against the back wall. Because there's all these people, I know, I'm being careful, all these people came pouring in and all saying, we want to be prayed for. We got a slight problem because there's me and Susie and there's a couple of other people, and we got one translator who's going to translate everything. And I reckon we'd got, 300 people in this room that would normally fit about 20. And very quickly we worked out there's actually not a lot of point in the translator doing anything because it's just not going to keep up. So what happened was people would talk to me in their dialect, and I had no clue what they were saying. I would pray for them in English, and they had no clue what I was praying. But if you could have seen the faces of those people, that as they expressed what they needed in their life to God in a language I didn't understand, as I prayed for them about whatever I felt led to pray about in a language that they didn't understand, guess what? God met them. And just looking at their faces, you could see the change that happened in their faces. People who obviously were asking to be prayed for things physically about stuff that was wrong, you could see were going away going, yeah. And it's like, what is going on? And I was reminded, I knew it really, but I was reminded again that wherever we go, God's there already. Wherever we go, he is already at work making a difference in people's lives and in the situations that are there. And actually what we do is we have our eyes open to recognize what he's doing. Ezekiel was in this place miles from home. He was in this place that he didn't want to be in because he'd been taken captive and he'd been taken off into exile in this other place. The place that he would have worshipped God. The place that as a young man he would have gone to the temple and praised has been destroyed and isn't there anymore. He's been taken into this other place where God isn't. And maybe that's how some of you are feeling today. Maybe some of you have grown up in the past knowing that God was there, and you've even been to his house and praised. You've prayed to him. But now it seems like you're in that place where you're miles away from anything. Maybe it's problems and difficulties that have caused that. Maybe it's just your choice. It's just you saying, actually, I don't want anything to do with that anymore. But for whatever reason, you're stood in that place and you feel like you're miles away from God. And God can't be here because he's there. God can't be doing anything here because no one's been here before. And just like I discovered in India, Ezekiel discovered something. Because as he stands by the banks of the river in Babylon, he sees a vision. It's all a bit weird. It's wheels within wheels, and it's weird when you read it. But actually what he saw was God's throne. And the reason that he saw all those wheels and that the wheels are on the throne isn't that God is stuck back in Jerusalem. God isn't restricted to that one place. God isn't just there. Actually, he discovers God's throne moves. God's in a wheelchair. Because he can move to the place where they are. And God meets them exactly where they are in that place. Ezekiel thinks there's no way God can do that. He's over there. He's back in Jerusalem. The temple's been destroyed. Maybe God's not even real because he's been beaten and proved that the enemy army have taken over and God's not even real. And then in exile in Babylon, he sees God face to face. And his life is transformed by that. And he spends his time telling all the people who are in exile with him, guess what? God's here. And their lives are changed and transformed to such a point that a few years later, they're allowed back when the exile ends. And they're the ones who have stayed faithful. They're the ones who have stayed true. They're the ones who have worshipped God when the ones who were left behind in Jerusalem hadn't. Maybe you're feeling this morning, for whatever reason, that you're miles away from where God is. Well, I've got news for you. God's there with you. Maybe you're thinking that all that stuff was for the past, and maybe when I was younger, when I was a child. Maybe something's happened that's caused you to forget about him. Maybe something's happened that's caused you to say, actually, I don't think you're there anymore, God. But when you're in that place miles from where he is, he will come and he will meet you there. And hopefully you've seen through some of the songs. You've heard through what Carol talked about and what the girls read for us. You know, that place that it seems like you're on your own and everything's gone wrong. It was then that God was carrying you. Maybe like Andrew, you've reached that point of saying, yeah, my life needs more fulfillment, needs more purpose. What am I called here for, God? And he will reveal where he wants you to be and where he wants you to go and what he wants you to do. I would just encourage you this morning to stop just for a minute or two and think, where am I? Where's my life with Jesus? You've heard people talk about the difference that he makes, that positive difference, that life-changing difference that he makes. And you can know that because wherever you are, whatever you've said or thought or done in regard to God, you might feel like he's not there, but he'll come and meet you in that place. And your life will be transformed by it. If you want to talk about any of that, come and have a word with me afterwards. And I can explain a little bit more, or I can pray with you, or I can help you to discover that Jesus for yourself right this morning even. We're going to finish by singing another song. It's one that Carol chose, I think. I, the Lord of sea and sky, I have heard my people cry, all who dwell in dark and sin, miles from God, on your own. God says, my hand will save. So we're going to stand and sing this together. Once we've sung it, I'll say a prayer to close the service, and I'll tell you about what happens with food and stuff like that as well. But let's stand together and sing this last song of the morning. I, the Lord of sea and sky.